So in today's video, guys, I'm going to be showing you flower choices as well as step-by-step techniques to have the best container garden. If you've never been here before, my name is Marlene. Welcome to Marlene's How-Tos, my home and garden channel. Container gardens are an excellent way to beautify your garden, porch, patio, or deck. There's some that are best for sunny areas, shaded areas, hard shade, and from season to season. You can see one for the fall. Here I did one for the winter. So they're very, very versatile in terms of what you're choosing. But today we're going to take a look at the ones that are for sunny areas. And what that means is an area that has 6 or more hours of sunlight each day. I'm going to go over the best choices, the techniques that you can have the best results, and they'll be absolutely beautiful. We're also going to be looking at the spiller, the thriller, and the filler. Right here we have some pentas, and then over here we have some marigolds, and we also have some wave petunia, and these are different than the other petunias, which are larger and they're not the wave type. So let's take a look at these 3 habits of growing patterns that they have. So the thriller here would be the penta, and the thriller is typically a plant that grows the tallest in the container. And if you look at the pots, usually they'll tell you that they come and they'll tell you, the growing habit. It says this one here grows 15 to 24 inches. So that's a good one to use. And also they will typically have nice showy flowers or leaves that's going to pull your attention in. That was some geraniums. Over here we have some celosia. So there are many different types that you can use, but just to give you a few examples, you want to make sure that you're getting one that has flowers that are open so you can tell what color it is for sure, as well as some that are unopened so you know that very soon you'll have more blooms coming out. Then we're going to look at our filler plant here. In this case, this is the marigold. I chose the orange one. Of course, you have yellows, you have two-tone ones, and all of that. I got the 6-pack one. They're smaller, less expensive, and you can just watch them come in over time as they fill out the space and just, give you that progress of how they're developing over time. Another good example here would be these sun patience. Very nice and pretty. Different shades are available. These are some mounding petunias. The flowers are larger and they do have, they don't run like the wave petunias. So now we're going to go ahead and get started going over all the different steps that you need to make sure that you have wonderful success. And what I typically do for my plants that are in the pots, I try to get the ones that, have multiple roots in there, so that way I know that I can get more out of it. I can split them up and get more from there. So this one actually had 3 different ones in it. So it's kind of like 3 for the price of 1. Now, if you want to have a bigger show of flowers early, in the planting process, you can get larger containers like 4-inch containers, or even like the 1-quart ones, if you're wanting to get that rush of color. Over here is another spiller type plant. This one is verbena. It is very, very beautiful. I absolutely love it. And it has different colors that you can choose from. Sometimes these are used in hanging baskets as well too, because they have this spilling habit that comes, over the sides of the container. Let's take a look at the other things we'll need. Here we have our watering can. You want to make sure you have that handy so that, when you're planting your flowers, you'll be able to hydrate them right away. And over here we have our potting mix. You have different brands that are available. This is the one that I have here. We also have some garden soil as another option. If you didn't have the potting soil, you can still use it. What I do is I, mix in some compost along with the garden soil, because it's, lighter. It has more, nutrients in it for the plants. And so that way it's a nice mix along with it. You can take a look at the texture right there to see how it looks. And if you don't have that, there are other ways you can feed your plants. So don't worry too much about it. We'll touch on that as well. And over here now we had the mulch. And in this case, I got the pine bark mini nuggets. There are many different types. You can have cypress mulch. You can use river pebbles if you like. There's so many different types. Now the main thing you'll need to start off with, of course, is your container, and always make sure it has a hole in the bottom. This one did not. I'd used it in a previous video, but I just wanted to show you that some of them do come like that, so always check before you make the purchase. Sometimes, of course, they cost less because the holes aren't there, but you'll want to make sure that you're going to put some holes in the bottom. And here my husband is actually using his drill bit that has a special bit on it. And what I'll do is I'll link this drill bit in the description box below where you can get it on Amazon, because it makes perfect little circles. And so that way, the holes, that way, they're not going to break or crack. They're really neat and they hold up, so that we don't have to worry that it's going to be, cracking your pot or anything like that. Another option would be like these terracotta pots right here. These are a little bit more pricey. Of course, the larger they are, the more you're going to spend, but they're absolutely beautiful to use as well. And you also have like these ones here, these ceramic ones, but I would typically recommend these for, like an area that's more covered, like, your covered porch or patio, so they're not out in the elements. And of course, they're absolutely gorgeous. But again, you want to make sure that they have holes in the bottom, because if not, the water is going to build up in there. It's going to get stagnant and your plants are going to have root rot and they will die. Today, I'm not going to be using like fresh new soil. I'm actually reusing soil from some previous flowers, some bulbs that I had in here earlier when I had showed you that previous video of my spring blooming bulbs, like the tulips and so on. So those have faded, so I moved them and I'm just going to use this. So you can reuse soil from, previous plants. Just make sure it's not anything that had died in there, because if they had disease, then, you don't want to have the disease spreading to other plants. So what you want to do is you want to get all the soil out if that was the case, and you want to wash it out completely. And then you rinse it off with some water that has a little bleach in there to kill any bacteria that might be in there. As you can see here, you just want to go through and check to see if there are any like large pieces of, any large pieces of mulch that may have been in there, or, any rocks that may have been in there, anything that may have been left behind, and just, check all the way through and get that out so that everything is nice and even. And I'm using my trowel here to just go in and make sure that everything is nicely mixed in. And I'll also link that below as well, where you can get a nice trowel like this on Amazon. I think it's really important to have a good trowel as a part of your garden tools. So we're going to do next, we're going to go ahead and add in the compost manure mix. And, you can do it as a 1-to-2 ratio if you like, maybe 1-to-3, just depends on what you prefer. And you just go ahead and mix it in so that everything blends in very nicely. And so it's light and airy, and this is really good because you don't want to have heavy soil. So if you have, like, say, clay in your area, like clay kind of soil, you want to make sure that you're taking that out and at least mixing it in with something else, like the compost here, or maybe some garden soil, something else. If it's too heavy, it's not going to be good for your plant. And then once you've done that, you want to make sure that you have at least 2 inches above the lid of your container. Get the soil all the way up to that level. We're going to go ahead now and start off first with the thriller. You can put it in the center of your pot or towards the back. I'm going to be putting mine towards the back. I just prefer that setup, but it just depends on what you prefer, what works for you. So you always want to make sure that you loosen up the bottom of it a little bit. And bear in mind too that, sometimes you may buy them, because I've seen it happen before, where they were not properly watered at the garden center, even though they were still looking good. So you want to make sure you get them a little bit of watering before you plant them, maybe like, the night before, the evening before. And don't put too much though, because you don't want it to be soggy and start to fall apart, but just enough so that it's easy to ease it out of the little container and the plant will not be stressed. And then you just go in and you cover with some of the soil that's in the pot, because you don't want to have the top exposed the way it came, because, it's not solid enough, so it's going to have too much evaporation taking place. So that's a good practice to put that in there. So you can see how we're looking there. So next, what we're going to do now is to add in our filler plants, which would be our marigolds in this case. And you want to make sure that you have some of the couple of blooms on there. Just go in and pick those ones out. Of course, you're going to use all of them, but the one that you want to have the most impact, whichever pot that is, you want to make sure that you put the most the ones that have the most blooms on there that are open. And again, the same rule applies. Make sure it has a little bit of moisture on there so your plant isn't stressed out already. or too soggy, and then you just place it, around to fill out the spaces. And of course, we're going to leave a little spot towards the front for our spiller plant a little bit later in the video. And if you're liking this video so far, be sure to give me a thumbs up. And again, this one, this is for sun-loving plants, the ones that are in full sun. So I did do a previous video. Be sure to check that one out as well. I'll link it at the end for you, where I showed you how to plant caladium bulbs, a garden that's going to be for part sun. And I do lots of gardening, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and tap on the notification bell so that way you will be notified of whenever I have a new video coming out, or even some of the previous ones will come up for you as well too. So we're going to go ahead and add in the next one. I'm making sure that I'm getting the one that has the most blooms on there right now. We just gently go in and ease it out. And of course, if you have any questions about plant choices or anything that you would like to see covered in a future video, be sure to put that in there as well. I'm just going to go in and place them. What I did originally is that I placed 3 of these in total, just so I could have a little space for my spiller, and then you can always go back in and fill out any additional spots that are there. And bear in mind, guys, that these plants are going to spread out a lot. It's probably going to be maybe like about 4 times the size that you're looking at here, maybe even 5 to 6 times, just depending on the growth pattern of the plant that you're putting in. But they're going to be much larger, so you don't want to put them too close and then they get crowded out, and then it just stops right there. You want to see them come up and just spread all the way out at their fullest potential. And as you see me doing here, just if it's a little bit low, because sometimes when you start to press in the soil, which is important to leave out any air pockets, you want to make sure that you're adding in additional soil. So we're going to go ahead now and add in our spiller. So I have 3 different roots in here, and I'm just going to go in and take a look to find the one that I figure is the most suitable for what I am doing here, just based on how it's shaped. And if they're kind of like intertwined, just gently ease them off, so that you're not snapping off any of the little branches that are coming out. And make sure you have enough soil around it, putting it in, so that way, because you do need to have some soil on it. You don't want it to just be exposed completely, those roots that are in there. And then just rotate it based on what you think is the best position for your pots, so that they're going to hang over to the side. And again, you go through the same steps and just make sure that the soil that you're covering over with it, the roots, that it's leveled with the rest of the soil that's in the container. And you always want to press in a little bit when you're doing that. I'm going to go in and add in the 4th one, and next we're going to go ahead and we are going to water them. And I highly recommend that when you're planting your flowers that you try to do it, like say mid-morning, early to mid-morning, or perhaps, in the evening, just before sunset, so that way they're not being put out in the heat of the day. Because again, that is stress for your plants, because you're moving them from one place to the other. And then after you've given them a good soak, you want to make sure that you go in next and add in your mulch. It's very important to add it in. It doesn't seem as apparent, like in the early spring, but as the weather gets warmer and you're moving into the summer, they really need to have that mulch in there. Mulch is good to help to retain moisture in your plants, but it's also good as far as keeping weeds out, because even though they're in containers, they can still get weeds. It does happen. So it helps to keep the weeds away, and it also in the colder months of the year, it helps to keep them warm if you're having winter type plants. And always go in and just lift the leaves and so on, just check to see if you need to cover any little spots. So this is what it's looking like here now when the mulch is in there completely. And you never want to leave it unwatered, because it's going to wick away the moisture and then they'll be distressed. So you always want to go in and soak it and make sure that you see water running out from the bottom of the container, so that way you know that for sure they have been fully watered. And you want to water them every day for the first week, and then after that only as needed. You can see that they've perked up very nicely here, and this is just the following day. So once the first week have passed, you want to just go in and check the top layer of the soil to make sure it's a little bit dry, and then you water at that point. And now feeding them after 2 weeks have passed, you'll want to feed your plants. And I'll link a video at the end that's going to show you exactly how to do that so that you're giving it the best possible start. And it's something you would do continuously through the growing season as well. And I'll tell you all the details in that video. So be sure that you check it out and you'll get all those little tips there. So I hope you got some great tips from this video. Be sure to check out the videos that will be attached here. I really wish you all the very best. I hope you have happy gardening. It's so therapeutic. It's just wonderful to go out there and hear the birds, see the bees, the butterflies, and all of that, and to attract them, these pollinators, so they can help with your vegetables and all of that. You can get some nice fruits and veggies. I wish you a happy planting season, happy spring, happy summer. Take care.